What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the 8 survivor problem that Scream 7 is about to have. So this is something that we talked a fair amount about when Scream 6 came out. The results of, not killing off too many people and introducing more people and also not killing them off, and obviously got returning survivors. But I want to go deeper, make a dedicated video for it. Obviously, I think enthusiasm for Scream 7 has picked up ever since, obviously Chris Landon has been involved, and there's been talks on the writers and all that stuff. We got plenty to talk about, I think, even over the next few weeks. So I'll be making several videos on Scream 7, and we'll go from there. Even if the strike, still lasts and keeps going, I think we still have a pretty okay amount to talk about. But one of the main things, and look, I don't even know if this is ultimately up to him, it just has kind of reinvigorated the conversation, is what do you do with all the returning people, okay? Technically, you don't even have to have, and this is nuts, and I don't think this will happen, but this is, I think, true. You don't even need to bring back the core 4. You could technically, for Scream 7, make it its own movie. You could have Sidney be the lead. You could have Gale be the lead. You could do whatever you want, because it is a fresh slate. Radio Silence is attached. It's the same, in terms of Paramount and stuff, but when you think about, the, I guess, link between 5 and then 6, they're technically without the director, and now the biggest part is we don't know the writers, right? If it is the same writers, which the reports are it is still Guy and Jamie, okay? That's why I don't want to get too far into it. If it is Guy and Jamie, it's going to be a continuation off of 5 and 6. And you want to make that trilogy. I don't think you want to end Sam and... I mean, you could, because it's not the worst ending in the world. In fact, it's actually kind of okay, the ending of Scream 6, if it was just goodbye to those characters. But I think you can do one more, right? With them as the center, kind of lead. We've talked about that before. All right, so most likely those 4 return. And what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to set the scene, right? And we're going to work to the issues that this movie could potentially have. Again, it may not be Chris's, may not be up to him. Could be producers, could be whatever the writers are writing on the script. That'll dictate who they bring back. It might not be up to him. He might have some say. He might have all the say. He might have no say. We really don't know. But you imagine those 4. Okay, if those 4 come back, then you have to include Danny immediately, right? So you got 5. Then you have, obviously, Gale, Kirby, and then Sidney as returning, if they were to return. But I guess surviving survivors, right? You got those 3. 8. 8 is a big issue. I talked about that when Scream 6 came out. I think what you're seeing now is actually quite a few people online. I'm not doing it to be mean. I've actually seen people that I highly respect. I think just either bringing it up, or whether they are thinking about it for the first time, or whether, again, just the new director for Scream 7 has kind of reinvigorated the conversation. I've seen a lot on social media about what do you do? What do you do? Because you have 8 people, and really, from what I'm seeing, the consensus kind of is you can't bring them all back. Now, I think you can. I think it would get messy very, very quickly. But you know what? I'd almost like to see what you would do with something like that. Because my thing, as I've said before, 8 people, even some marketing kind of things you'd have to think about, right? You have 8 survivors. Well, all right, even if you have 5 new characters, you're already kind of at the max. I mean, we've counted the characters really in Scream 5, in Scream 6. We've ranked them afterwards. We have talked about them leading in where, well, obviously so many of these people have to die, and you got to compare returning people to new people, right? You also have to assume new people are probably Ghostface. So if you only cast 5 new people because you already have 8, well, 1 to 3 of those 5 is Ghostface, unless you do something with Danny, unless you do something with Sam. Just from a simple kind of logistic standpoint, you've already messed that up quite a bit. They kind of ran into that issue with Scream 6. There were new characters, but there's only so many new characters, and you have to pick 2 out of maybe 6 of them. So you got you have a pretty good odd of getting one right? Maybe not the greatest odd. You don't necessarily want to bet money on it, but you have a pretty okay, and many people did, including myself and many, many others, right? So that's one thing. I've talked about the trailer in terms of, okay, well, they did pretty good in 6. Other than thinking back, hindsight being 2020, right? Thinking back, I would have maybe preferred you didn't show as much of the ladder sequence and Annika, just because that was so good. And I guess if you kind of go in not knowing if she's going to die, because we all knew, you know what I mean? If you didn't know she was going to die there, But beyond that, I think that it was an insanely good trailer, about as good as we could hope to get, especially compared to 5. So where I'm going with this, right, is you have 8 survivors. Well, when you make a like when you film it, and then you make the trailer for 7, what do? If you mess up, you could show one of those survivors dying in your trailer. And even if you don't mess up, you could still show one of the new people dying, like the Annika, right, in the trailer. So they are really, really stuck just because of the quantity of people that they have. On top of that, as we've said many times, like they'd have to get rid of some. I think Danny obviously is a very easy target, and that sucks. And I guess it's not guaranteed because you have like Sydney and Mark getting out of 3. You also had Gail and Dewey. So you had 4 survivors getting out of that one. That's not, I guess, even like you introduce Martha, but, not really a part. I would consider it 4, right? 3 had very, very little, but Cotton did make it, I suppose. So, I mean, you've had some situations, but for this one, you imagine Danny, you imagine a core 4 member would need to go, and then you really start to put the returning people in jeopardy. And again, like what I've even seen online is like, and this worries me. I'm not on this side, but people will say like, do you even need to go to Nev? Do you even need, I mean, the rumor is they wanted her back, or they want her back. It could be past, it could be present, talk, right? But like, do you even need to go to her? Because like, will that even work? Now you could say, and I'll throw kind of like a wrench in this. If this is the final movie of the Carpenter sisters like leading it, and you never know what's going to happen with like a Nev Campbell or Courtney Cox, right? I imagine the movies do keep going to like an 8, 9, 10. I mentioned that a few weeks ago. I absolutely think that. But you don't know, and you also don't know if you can keep bringing back returning things. So while you have everybody, and this is kind of where I'm at, if you have everybody, just go for it. It might be messy, and I understand that. It might be messy, but you might not have this chance again. And yes, by doing it, you probably put Kirby, let's say. That's actually why I chose her, because I think you put her amongst others, but like I guess returning survivors, you put her in big danger because again, like you gotta take some out. You gotta take some of those 8 out, and that's even if you do it in the first place, right? And I guess just an issue with having that many people is you might not even bring them all back, period. Again, I think the core 4 is safe, and if the core 4 is safe, that means Danny is safe. So you start out with 5, and then if you even bring back like one of those 3, then you're already at 6, right? You've already basically gone half of your overall cast. And now I guess like the Tara thing or Jenna Ortega, the rumors, will they wait for her filming schedule? Will they not? That'll be interesting. But I mean, like Nev, obviously back in 3, right? She had such limited things. So even if Jenna Ortega can film for 3, 4, 5 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever, I think they would try to get as much as humanly possible from her in that time. And so you would still consider her a main cast member, right? So you can't like say, okay, well, it's really only 3 and like a quarter because she's barely in it. And I mean, I think they would, again, like milk it dry as much as they possibly can for when she's on set, right? So it'll be very interesting. I mean, this is, to me, like Nev specifically is obviously a big story. Who's the writers? And obviously like how they tell the story of 7 is a big story. But one of the most maybe like underrated things that I'm really fascinated with, and I will be over the next couple months until they literally say the cast, is the cast. And not new people. Obviously people have their fan things of the Sydney Sweeneys of the world and Jessica Roths now, which I kind of want to make a video specifically on Jessica because I think that's a good idea, to be honest with you. Just add another new character. But I think that would be the right kind of new character. There's those discussions. But before we even do our fan casting for like extra people, why don't we figure out if like the 8 characters in general, why don't we figure out if they're coming back, because we got to do that first, then we can focus, at least in my mind, that's how I think, right? Let's focus on that first, then we'll go to the fan cast of the world. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think it would work? Do you think all 8 will come back? Do you think they would have to be killed off? You let me know what you think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.